of Son of a Southern Chef. This month marks the 5-year anniversary of Son of a Southern Chef. And because of that, I decided to just go down memory lane and look back at the making of this book. So I started cooking from a very young age. I started cooking as a kid, watching my parents cook. My mother is Guyanese, and she grew up there, and then she was raised in London, and my dad was born in Alabama, and then moved to New York City when he was a child. So my household was filled all the time with like these amazing aromas. I grew up in the church, and in the black church, there was always food at the end of a service. And so I also grew up around people who loved food, who could cook. And I just had a deep appreciation for food ever since I could remember. But when I was transitioning from junior high school to high school, my dad was like, he's going to open up a restaurant. And it had been the first time that he'd done something like this. He's always owned his own businesses, but this is the first time that he was actually going to like cook for the community as a job. And so I just remember that time being so interested in what he was doing, and also thinking like, maybe I can do this. Like maybe my calling is to be a chef. And I fell in love with it. I've always loved cooking, but that particular moment was very defining for me. And so I went to a high school called Food and Finance, and I started cooking. And that's really where I learned how to hold a knife and chop vegetables. And I always tell people it was no easy bake curriculum. It was a real high school experience, but also it had a serious culinary component. After a while, I started to fall in love with media, and that was in the beginning of social media days. And I got a job interning at the Food Network, working in the test kitchen. And that's where I started to put together, okay, people can cook and also do sort of media side. And I was really good at it. When the camera turned on, I was ready. I knew what to say. It was very natural for me. And so I think naturally I fell in love with becoming a food storyteller, which is actually what I call myself. Most people know me as a chef. I'm also a psychotherapist, clinical social worker. I love helping people. And I think that the reason why I wanted to become a chef was because I just wanted to feed people. I wanted to make people feel good through food. And it wasn't until I got to college when I started to think about, like, what do I want to do with my career? And so I sat with one of my mentors, Tammy Kresge, on campus. And every week, once a week, I was sitting in her office and we would just brainstorm ideas. And she was the person that helped me to really identify the story between me and my dad. And it was a love story between our love for food, our love for music. And after one meeting, I left her office and Son of a Southern Chef just hit me. And I ran back to her office and I said, I got it. She's like, you got what? I was like, I got it. Son of a Southern Chef. That's what it is. That's who I am. I am so proud that 5 years later, I'm holding a copy of my cookbook. One of the things that I really loved about this book was not only getting to tell my family's story and share recipes, but I got to work on this book with my family, with my chosen family, with my friends, my close tribe. And that felt really beautiful and special. So most people actually don't know this story, but when I first got my book deal, I was working with a different publisher and a different editor. And without giving out too much tea, things didn't work out over there. And I was reassigned to a new publisher and a new editor. But the blessing was I walked in saying, I'm going to create a very traditional cookbook. And when the transition happened, I decided that instead of making a traditional cookbook that was safe or ones that I had seen before, I was going to make the cookbook that I really wanted to make. A lot of people tell me like, when you go to a publisher, it's going to be a book that they want. It's going to be their cover. It's going to be their choices. And you're just sort of like the puppet. And I sort of believed that, but I always thought like, that's not really who I am. I kind of like to go by the beat of my own drum. And so it was a blessing in disguise to actually work with this new publisher and editor, because I actually said, I'm going to work on this book with my family. I'm going to work on this book with my friends. And that's exactly what I did. One of my BFFs, Anisha Sisodia, she did all the photography in this book. I mean, have you seen the photography in this book? It is nothing short of beautiful and amazing. And I'm not just saying that because it's my book. I'm also saying that because it's my book, but because it's also true. One of the things that I really loved and prioritized about this book was the photography. I wanted the images to stand out, to just jump off the page. I wanted people to sort of start to salivate when they saw the recipes in this book. And so this book is far from tradition, it's far from traditional, it's expressive, it's joyful, it's fun, it's me. Some of my favorite recipes in this book, oh my gosh, where do I begin? So I'm just gonna read down the index. Okay, we've got, of course, the grits, shrimp and grits, which I use like coconut milk and creamy cheddar cheese in there. Guyanese cheese rolls. These were pastries that I grew up eating from a place called Sybil's in my neighborhood in Queens, and they made the most amazing Guyanese pastries. Let's see, my no boil mac and cheese with ham and greens. That's actually a recipe that I created, but one of my best friends, Camilo, he makes this recipe every year for Thanksgiving. And you don't boil the noodles, which is so beautiful about this. You just boil the cream and then pour it on the noodles. It's absolutely amazing. What else do I love in here? I love my dad's mac and cheese, our candied yams with goat cheese, sweet potato pie. I have upside down banana cake in here. I've got cream corn, cream kale, shrimp skewers, of course, like rice and peas, my mom's curry chicken. So many delicious recipes in this book. One of the beautiful things about writing a book, or a book about your family, or even a cookbook, is that you really get to know yourself better, you get to know your family better. One of the things that I did, and I encourage anybody to do this, is to sit with your loved ones and interview them. So I sat with my dad and I interviewed him and I asked him questions about what it was like growing up in the South. What was it like growing up in New York City without his dad, with his mom? What were the recipes that he loved? And I actually watched my dad make the coleslaw, fry the fish, make the macaroni and cheese, make the potato salad, and make the collard greens. And I would write it down. And so over time, I started to collect all of this, these recipes, and it became living archives for me. So even today, though, my dad passed away in 2015. He died of cancer. And it was kind of sad, for me not to be able to show my dad, hey, Dad, this is the book that you inspired and your legacy inspired. But I also know that my dad is very aware of my success. I believe in, the eternity of our souls. And so my dad is very aware. He's very present of what I've done in this earth. And he was the guiding force behind me even finishing this book. I can proudly say I've wrote all 288 pages of this book. It's so funny because when I first met my literary agent, she asked me, do you want to write the book or do you want someone else to write the book? And I was like, huh? What you mean? I want to write the book. It's my book. But yeah, I took pride in sitting and writing and getting up every day, working with one of my BFFs, Chef Cash. Shout out to Chef Cash on all of the recipes. I mean, we tried so many recipes. We tested them. We developed new ones. We had friends and neighbors coming over to test the recipes. It was just such a fun process. And from start to finish, this book actually took me 2 years to write. But if you ask any author, how long did it take you to write your first cookbook? Most of us say our whole lives, because we've been sort of creating and cultivating, our first work since we were born. This book turning 5 years old, it's kind of wild to me when I look back and I see from the beginning of my journey to where I am now. I could have never predicted all of the accomplishments, successes, and beautiful moments that I've had doing this book. One of the beautiful moments that I had doing this book was shooting in my mom's apartment. I mean, I remember at the time there was like 7 people in the house, plus a crew, plus a team. We had 4 people in the kitchen, a prop stylist, photography. It was just so wild. And my mom's apartment, we call it affectionately a studio, because from the time we were kids, it was always an open door policy. We were always shooting videos there, making music there. And so I thank my mom because she opened up her home to let all of us in and just create this book. So that was a beautiful moment. I love that we got to go through New York City, get on the train, go to some of the, neighborhood gems that are still there that are featured in the book. Like bodegas and restaurants that are featured in this book. And that was also beautiful to just be able to photograph inside of those establishments. when you get a copy of this book, you're going to see family, you're going to see friendship, you're going to see love, you're going to see kindness. And, you know, that's what's important to me as a creator, as an author, is to be able to put work out that really transforms people's lives, that spreads more kindness in the world, that empowers people to live their best life. And that's actually why I went back to school to become a social worker, because all my life I've just been trying to help people, you know, be better. And that's why I wrote this book, and that's why I do what I do today. So one of the ways you can support is, if you have a copy already, share your copy in a video, post it on social media. You can gift a copy to someone who doesn't have one. And if you're making recipes for Juneteenth or Pride Month or anything else that you're celebrating, feel free to tag me at Lazarus Lynch and hashtag Son of a Southern Chef. I want to sell even more copies than when it first came out. I want to say thank y'all. Thank you for riding with me. Thank you for believing in my journey and for supporting and for contributing to the success of this book and the evolution of this book to even many more years celebrating Son of a Southern Chef. I love y'all, and I'll see y'all next time.